Two members of the same family have tested positive for coronavirus in England. The first cases of the virus to be diagnosed in the UK were announced as more than 80 Britons on an evacuation flight from the Chinese city at the centre of the outbreak were due to land in the UK. The Department of Health declined to say where in England the patients were from, but it is understood they are not in the Wirral area, where a special facility has been set up to quarantine those returning from Wuhan. In a statement, Chief Medical Officer Professor Chris Whitty said, "The patients are receiving specialist NHS care, and we are using tried and tested infection control procedures to prevent further spread of the virus. The NHS is extremely well prepared and used to managing infections, and we are already working rapidly to identify any contacts the patients had, to prevent further spread. We have been preparing for UK cases of novel coronavirus, and we have robust infection control measures in place to respond immediately. We are continuing to work closely with the World Health Organization and the international community as the outbreak in China develops to ensure we are ready for all eventualities." Meanwhile, the US has told its citizens to avoid China after the WHO declared a global coronavirus emergency. The Chinese death toll has risen to 213 and total infections surpassed the SARS epidemic of 2 decades ago. The U.S. State Department raised its warning alert to the highest level, telling Americans do not travel to China and urged those already there to leave. Hours earlier, the WHO, which was criticized for initially downplaying the virus threat, changed tack after crisis talks in Geneva. "Our greatest concern is the potential for the virus to spread to countries with weaker health systems," WHO Chief Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus as the emergency was declared. "We must all act together now to limit further spread. We can only stop it together." Mr. Tedros said travel and trade restrictions involving China were unnecessary. But, with the disease spreading to more than 20 nations, authorities, businesses and worried people around the world were taking matters into their own hands. Japan has urged its citizens to avoid non-essential travel to China, following similar warnings by Germany, Britain and other nations in recent days. Those warnings are not as definitive as the U.S. directive against all travel to China. Among the array of other extraordinary containment efforts, many major airlines this week suspended or reduced flights to China. Mongolia also halted cross-border traffic with its huge neighbor, and Russia sealed its remote Far Eastern frontier. Some countries banned entry for travelers from Wuhan, the city in central Hubei province where the virus first surfaced. Italy and Israel barred all flight connections with China. Impoverished Papua New Guinea went so far as to bar all visitors from Asian ports.